Perfect.
Okay, and you will, so I know you can't really see many of the people in the room, but that's what we've got. We can see you.
Okay. Great. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm Christine Holloman, principal and founder of Holloman Marketers and Strategists. And as George mentioned, George and I have known each other for quite a long time. We actually met working booths in exhibit halls and at professional conferences side by side. And we quickly realized that we had a lot in common and that we could really talk and uncover the needs of the people that we were meeting at those conferences. And it didn't take us too long at all to realize that we could quickly cross-sell with each other and talk about each other's services and make introductions to people who are stopping at our prospective booths. So we had a lot of fun then and became hard and fast friends. I'm coming to you today from Houston, Texas. I had a little scheduling challenge. We're at a last minute strategy session scheduled for one of our clients, and the flights just didn't work. So I couldn't get to where I needed to be. So I appreciate you listening in to me virtually. So hopefully George put on the skinny lens and the young lens. So otherwise I'm going to back up like this. So what we're going to talk about this morning is building your marketing plan. My goal this morning is to help you come out with actionable items so that you understand what you can do to make your marketing plan successful. I'm going to give you some ways to think about it, some tools to use, and a methodology that I use with our clients. So with that, it all begins with the end in mind. So what I want you to think about is where you want to go with your practice. How does this all fit in? Is it the primary role? Is this primary service? Is this a secondary service? Is this an intro service? What is it that you're trying to achieve in your own organization? Get clarity on that. I know it sounds simple, but I can't even begin to tell you, in working with the over 350 firms that I've worked with since I've had my own company, how many do not have an idea of where they want to go. They haven't even clarified what they want to be, where they're headed, what that looks like. Spend the time thinking about your own business. Just like you help your clients think about their businesses and where they want to go, begin with your end in mind. That's what a good marketing plan does. Now, where you go from there is, let's put it in the revenue model. So I like to start with the revenue goals, and I break it down like this. And it may be slightly different for you, but if you have going concerns, then you have some existing clients or maybe carryover work into 2022. So I want you to think about what your annual goal is for 2022, and I want you to write that down. Like, just jot the number down right now. Now, what percentage, you can go dollar amount or percentage of that goal, is going to be from recurring work or from existing opportunities? And you have that as a percentage here. The other part, so take the annual goal minus recurring, and that's what you need in terms of what I call net new or new business. Now, that can be a percentage of that revenue goal, that annual goal. It can be a dollar amount. I like to get it into a dollar amount as quickly as possible, because then we're going to break it down even further. We're going to say, out of that net new, do you have any upsell or cross-sell opportunities with current clients or former clients? And if so, how much is that going to be? Now, the rest of it comes out total net new. So this is opportunities that you don't even know about. Maybe you haven't closed. They might be in your pipeline, but you haven't closed them yet. You need to land this work. And this is what this right side of this graph demonstrates. And I want you to break it down as much as possible so that you really understand what you have to bring in and what the goals are for each service line, each industry sector, each individual. You can break it down a number of different ways. But when you start breaking down goals like this, and you start here, even though I know many of you are saying, what does this have to do with marketing? It helps clarify what exactly you need to do. That's the problem I see with most marketing efforts, is that they start with the tactics and the strategies, the channels that they're going to use. They're like, let's do a blog, or let's do a webinar, let's do this podcast, or what have you. Well, they have no reason for doing that. There's no purpose. When you start with the end in mind and you build through your goals like this, then it clarifies what you want to do, need to do from a marketing perspective that drives back to each one of these goals. That makes sense so far? Anybody give me a thumbs up or a nod or something like, thank you. So breaking this down and taking the time to break it down really gets clarity. In my experience, what I've seen is that when we break this down and we say, this is what you really need in terms of total net new clients, then we can see it makes the goals very easy to achieve, and it really gives them clarity on, I need to land this many new clients. In my experience, most people overestimate what they need and how many opportunities they need at the top of their funnel in order to achieve their goals. This helps you get really focused. So then you can break it down a little bit more. So what's your desired revenue? And you can take any one of those, the ways that we broke it down. And matter of fact, I do this typically multiple times. So I take desired revenue, say by service line or by individual. Then what's the average deal size? Take the desired revenue divided by the average deal size, gets you the number of deals that you need. What's your close ratio? And then it gives you the number of targets or opportunities that you need when you take into consideration your close ratio. Now, you can also take that a step further and you can say, how many out of those target opportunities that I need in order to achieve this revenue goal, how many people do I need to talk to get to there? So maybe my percentage is about 50%, let's say, or 30%, whatever the number is, that of people that I talk to who have a real opportunity, and the timing is right. Because one thing we know about most of your services is the timing has to be right. They can be very qualified, but they may not be ready to pursue what you're doing for them. And so you have to take that into consideration. And you can do that by looking at those targets and then doing the same kind of calculation with about what's the percentage that will be ready when you are. And then that'll get you to the very top of your funnel in terms of how many total visitors or top of the funnel visitors you will need in order to achieve these goals. Now, the next step is identify the ideal client. And we do this by developing personas. Just quick show of hands for those I can see. Anybody develop personas already? I know George has. George and I are believers. We know the power of personas. If you haven't developed personas for your ideal client, now's the time. This is a semi-fictional description of ideal, optimal client based on research plus real data plus your experience. Now, you consider demographics, behavioral characteristics, motivation, their goals, and you build out a profile with their fictional name, a title, a company, age, gender, revenue range, employee count, location, the kind of characteristics and elements that make up your ideal. And again, the revenue is one place where people don't take the time to really understand who they want to be as an organization. They don't take the time to break down their own revenue, and they don't take the time to build out the ideal client. And those are the reasons why marketing fails. Those are the reasons why marketing fails. And it's not too dissimilar to what you see in your clients on a day-to-day basis. They typically don't fail, or maybe we call it achieve their optimal level of success because they're not smart people or they don't have a good business. They typically fail to achieve success because they don't have plans, processes, procedures, methodologies in place. They haven't taken the time to work on the business. They're too busy working in the business. Anybody run into that by chance? A couple of nods. Nobody. Everybody's run into perfect clients.
No, it's endemic. We actually talked about it a lot over the last 2 days.
It absolutely is, where one of the things when you talk about value growth, value acceleration, you really look at the kinds of services that most of you provide organizations. It's almost inevitable that you help the owners work on the business and get out of that whirlwind of being that center in the business and having everything rotate around them. Same goes for your organization. Take the time to build out these elements. Clarifying ideal client keeps everybody focused. It keeps you focused. It keeps your team focused. Not only that, but here's a trick to why personas are important and what you can do with them. When you have that persona well honed, use it as a checklist when you're talking to prospects. Because when you go through all of these elements here on the right-hand side, the elements of a persona, and you built that out, and you're talking to someone that you think may be a good prospect, maybe they're not, maybe you have some doubts about it, come back to this persona and start looking at where they don't meet the qualifications of ideal. And make conscious decisions. Is that something you're willing to forgo? Or is that a deal breaker? The most successful professional services organizations out there are the ones who will turn down prospects, will qualify prospects as hard as the prospect is qualifying them, and to even a greater degree. Because once you start doing that and you start really evaluating, will this make a great client for our organization? And you look past what it means in terms of revenue, all of a sudden you become a hot commodity. So what happens is, and it's amazing, I've coached numerous professionals on how to do this throughout the years. Everyone who has believed me and done what I've told them to do and taught them to do has come back at some point in time and said, oh my gosh, Christine, the moment I started pushing back and really asking questions and saying, I don't know whether we're a good fit and doing a little pushback, all of a sudden a light bulb switch, flipped the switch, and the prospect all of a sudden started trying to convince me why they'd make a great client. That puts you in the driver's seat. This is a really powerful tool to use. So the next thing, so once you've got these basic elements in place, the next thing you really need to understand is the journey. Every prospect takes a journey. Every prospect goes through the same kind of journey to make a buying decision of any kind. But you need to look at that journey from two different perspectives. Now, from the buyer's perspective, this little 3-step journey, they think, oh, I am aware I have a problem or an issue or a challenge to solve. That's awareness. I need to then consider who to solve that problem and who's out there that can help me. And then I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to buy. That's the buyer's perspective. From the marketer's perspective, it's a little bit more detailed than that. So we have visitors, we have people, say, coming into your website, attending a webinar, listening to a podcast, or reading some of your great content that you might have, and they're visitors. They're the utmost tire kickers, where they're just coming in and they're snooping around, maybe they're reading something, downloading, whatever, but you don't really know too much about them. The next stage is a lead. They've given you enough information that they seem to meet the qualifications. I mean, you may know at the lead stage that they are a business owner, let's say, but you don't know much more about them. MQL stands for Marketing Qualified Lead, and that means they meet more of the criteria. Maybe they're within your geographic region. Maybe we now have a name, or we know the title of the person. We know that they're the business owner. They own their own business. They're the business owner, and we know their name and email, for example. So they seem on the outset to be qualified. Maybe we can surmise where they're located, but we don't know whether there's an opportunity or not. The sales qualified lead is where we know enough about them. We know all the characteristics. They seem to meet our ideal. And they have expressed some sort of interest, or they're giving us cues that say they have a real need. They have a problem, they have a challenge, they have an issue, they have a desire to do something different, and they have a real need. That's a sales qualified lead. They're talking more specific. An opportunity is one where it says, can you, George, help me solve this problem? Is this what you do? How much will it cost? They start talking fees. They start talking timeline. They start talking specifics. Who would do this? What does it look like? What does your process look like? Do you have a methodology? What kind of tools do you use? And they start talking fees. Then the last stage is the client. Just because we sell them something doesn't mean they go away from our life cycle. There should be upsell, cross-sell, ongoing opportunities for you with clients if you're thinking about them and you leave them in your funnel. The problem is most people keep pursuing opportunities and they forget to nurture their existing clients. So that's from the buyer's perspective and the marketer's perspective. Now, here's another way to kind of look at this. So I've just kind of taken that marketer's perspective funnel and flipped it on its side and built out these stages a little bit more. So we have unaware, contemplating, planning, action, sold, and advocate. So an unaware, they fit the basic criteria, but maybe they don't know that they really have a problem. Maybe they're in avoidance. Maybe they're defensive. They just feel overwhelmed. They're in denial. They just aren't ready to solve their current situation. Contemplating is that awareness stage. The buyer would call that awareness. Contemplating stage, they know that they have a challenge or an issue. They're saying, I'm tired of this. I'm not happy with the status quo. I need to do something differently. Actively seeking information. Planning, their intent to take action into the near future. Developing this plan, how's this going to work? What's the timeline? They're gathering definitive information. And that's that consideration stage. Action goes into the decision stage, as does sold. So from a buyer's perspective, action means they're ready to act. This is your proposal kind of stage where they're talking more specifics, getting down to the nitty gritty in terms of timelines and cost. They're having face-to-face meetings. Maybe they're checking out your references. Things like that are happening. Sold, they're ready to sign that agreement. You've developed everything. You've talked through all the process and procedures, and they are then ready to do more. They're ready to sign. Advocate is the ultimate, and this is why you can't ignore your current clients. You want them to be advocates of yours. That means they're consistently happy. You've exceeded expectations. But here's the key. Advocates bring others to you. They are actively promoting you, your business. They love sending new people your way because they're so happy with what you've done. That is going to be, statistically speaking, a small percentage of your client base. You can't get everybody there. They just don't all think that way. They should, but they don't. And it's not necessarily based on the one you help the most. It is a combo of meeting their needs, meeting their expectations, and understanding their personality and balancing that to reach that advocate stage. But what's important to know about this kind of process and thinking about it like this is, even though the diagrams that I've shown you show these stages in equal length, they are not necessarily in equal length. Any one stage can last minutes, maybe even seconds, to years. Prospects can stall at a stage and not take action. So inaction or not making a decision is something to take into consideration when you're building out your marketing plan. And prospects can transgress. Typically, when you're dealing with business owners, they transgress because of fear. It is too difficult to face what they need to do, and out of fear, they totally transgress. Now,
can I interject for just a sec? So I'm pointing at your stages. So guys, we talked. I showed that Excel spreadsheet with the buyer's journey. Christina's done a much more elegant job here. What we're going to do with the marketing information that's in the knowledge base, marketing information that comes from you guys, that potentially comes from Christine, is we're going to line it up as a pick list. Okay, you have someone who's in the contemplating phase. What should we be telling them, showing them, sending them, doing with them? Planning, action. Where does business scan fit? Where does discover fit? Where does a white paper fit? Okay, how do we help people with collateral, with touches, right? The touch could be active. the touch can be passive, that gets them moving. How do we get them out of, because they'll stall. How do we get them to move? So just, I want to line that up with the conversation we just had.
Yes, and that's why you'll see at the bottom of this diagram, keep in mind your objective. So unaware, do not sell to your unawares. They are not ready. All your objective there, top of mind. Little things, start to help them see themselves in that information. Start to see, you've got to open their eyes, like take the blinders off is your only goal. Help them start to go, wait a minute, there's a better way. I don't have to live in this mess that I'm in. I can move out of this. And then contemplating your objective is help them see the future. Wow, this is what it could be like if I take this action. Then planning stage, you are the expert. You have to start positioning yourself as the expert. Action, overcoming objections, demonstrate fit. That's where you start the selling process. What you're doing in unaware, contemplating, and planning is nurturing and moving them through these cycles. So that's why different tools work at a different stage. And the challenge and where I see things fall apart is that they try to give a proposal. Let me send you a proposal. They'll start jumping to fees to someone who's unaware, contemplating. And you waste a lot of time. And here's something I'd like each one of you to write down. You are not in the proposal making business. If you have team members who just crank out the proposals, tell them, print it big, put it up in your office. You are not in the proposal making business. You do not get paid to do proposals. And I don't think anybody in the audience is in the proposal making business. They should be withheld until they're ready in that action or sold stage. So not until they're ready do you come forth with a true proposal or an agreement or anything like that. Statement of work, anything, you withhold that. You use other tools. Save it. Because there are 4 things that have to be in place for anybody to buy. 4 things. Anybody know what any of those 4 things are? Anybody want to guess? Good guess it. Let me tell you what the 4 things are. Some people may call them a little bit differently, but 4 things that must be in place in order for them to be at that action and sold stage. Need equals supply. They have an identified, clarified need, and you can supply the solution to that need. Need equals supply. I write it out as N, the letter N equals S. Do I have a clarified, identified, well understood need? Can I add value? Can I fulfill that need? Need equals supply. Decision makers. Sounds simple, but we often overlook influencers, others involved in the process, others they want to consult. We think the owner is the end all be all, and a lot of times they're not. They may go to their spouse and talk about it. So their spouse may be an influencer in the process. They may have some key people on their team that they want to bring into the decision. So how do you uncover decision maker? Here's the question.
And Christine, we talked yesterday a little bit about other professionals at the table who can sandbag, who can kill our deal. We pointed the finger at CPAs pretty robustly, but make sure you understand, who else could influence the deal that you may not have thought of.
Exactly. And the question that I ask is, I say, George, Who besides you would you like to include in this process as you make the decision? So I always give deference to the owner. So who besides you would you like to include in the process as you make the decision? That gives them the opportunity to save face, first of all. If they want to be their ego, they need their ego stroked. Who besides you, as you make the decision, if they need their ego stroked, then you have just said, I know it's you, but who else might you include? They start to reveal who else they're going to consult, who other people they want to bring into the process, and it gives them power. It gives them they feel in control of that process. And they're going to tell you who else they are granting access to this process. Those are deal killers right there. The hidden decision makers and influencers are deal killers. So the two other things that you must have in order to move them to the action and sold stage. Timeline. What time frame do you want to solve this problem? How quickly do you need to address these issues, these challenges? If we have our methodology that takes this amount of time, does that seem like a reasonable time frame to you? So you have to talk about time frame. And the last thing is what? What are we missing out of this? What have we not talked about?
Money, budget.
But they're saying budget, money.
Budget, money. And you'll find that in the contemplating and planning stage, they'll start asking a lot about budget. They'll start asking fees, but they're not ready to act. It's almost like this, well, how much does it cost? Can I talk myself out of it because I'm not really committed? So there are several different ways. George, have you addressed any of that about how to talk about fees?
We talked about it in the workshop. We haven't talked about it here today.
Okay. So you want to really push talking about fees until you have the other three elements and in place and understood, and you have demonstrated your expertise. You preferably, and this is a common thing in sales, do not want to be the first person to spit out a fee if you can avoid it. Sometimes I give ranges. Depends on if I think I have all the other information. But I try and I recommend flipping the question. Have you thought about what your investment might be to move your business to the next level or to address these challenges or, whatever it is, however you have phrased the value that you're adding for their organization? Have you thought about it? Yes, I've thought about it. No, I haven't really thought about it. I don't even know how to put it in perspective. Well, let's think. And then you can put it in not terms about I would charge you this, but you might give case studies. You see right here where they say case studies at stage 4. That's a great way to use case studies. We worked with a firm that was similar, an organization that was similar to yours, who had these kinds of challenges. Here's the methodology we used for them. Here's the process we used. And that ended up to be an investment of X, or in this range. That helps them clarify if you have a case study that helps them see themselves. But that's the key to it, is you have to have a case study where they can say, this is who I am. That's me. Oh, that sounds just like me. I have all those same issues. That's how you use a case study, and you put fee into the conversation with a stage 4. but you haven't really told them this is how much I would charge you. You're using case studies as a way to identify whether or not they've thought about budget and if they have allocated the right kind of funds to afford your fees. But pushback, don't just blurt out, here's what I would charge you, here's my fees. You got to hold that a little bit close to the vest. Now, there are lots of different marketing channels and tactics that you can implement. This is the part I'm sure everybody's been waiting for. As you go through this process and you really think about where they are and you're looking at practicing, identifying where they are in the process, you've gone through the basic foundational elements that I talked about in terms of really understanding your organization, where you want to be, what your goals are, the ideal client. And you get to this point of where it's saying, now what? What do I do? Now, first of all, there are a ton of marketing channels and tactics out there. I've listed a few of them in this diagram. You know, you have a website, email, referrals, social media, events, direct mail, webinars, workshops, SEO, SEM, PR, advertising, speaking engagements, etc. There are a ton more that I could add to that. If you're just starting out or you have a small shop and you go, where do I start? I'd start 2 places. 1, shore up the content of your website. Your website does not have to be the end-all be-all. It does not have to be the most fancy website out there, but it needs to be clear. It needs to have good content so that people, when they go to your website, understand they work with people like myself. This organization understands me. If your website does not answer that question, then work on the content of the website or get somebody to help you work on the content of the website if you can't. If you're getting lost in your own head, do that first. People will look at you, even if they're referred to you. They'll look at your website. Second thing is, if you're just getting started and you want to know what the core things are, LinkedIn. Build your LinkedIn profile out, get a strong network built of people who have access to other networks, do what's called an open network, and build those out. Build the description, post on LinkedIn, get some good content out there. You can publish from your LinkedIn profile. Do those, if you're just starting out and you have limited time and resources, do those 2 things. You're going to have a tremendous amount of success if you just conquer those 2. If you're a little bit bigger organization or more sophisticated, or you've really conquered your website and LinkedIn and they're in good shape, then select 1 or 2 other channels that you can actually conquer. One of the things that I see another thing that I see that makes marketing channels and marketing efforts fail or not achieve the ultimate success is they're doing way too many things with a small team, and something evidently typically gets put on the back burner and then it doesn't happen. It goes on the list of best intentions and then it quickly derails. So I would rather see organizations and professionals scale back and conquer and really think through the process and do a few things well than try too many things and be a mass failure. Pick the things that you love to do. Pick the things that you love to do. If you're a writer and you love to write, I have a client like that out in California. He is a prolific writer. He writes a great article every month. Write 1 article every month. Make sure it's about 1,500 to 2,000 words. Don't write short little blips. Combine articles if you don't have the 1,500 to 2,000 words. 1,500 to 2,000 words is the key for search engine optimization to help you get keyword rankings. Okay, that's why there's that number in there. Short blog posts don't really do that. But if
We have a question,
Yeah, I don't-
Christine.
Can you just repeat that again, the number of words? Well, often articles are suggested to be no more than 800 to 1,000 words or postings, and so go over that part of it again. Thanks.
1,500 to 2,000 words is what it takes for an article to be ranked by Google. And that's a blog or an article, whatever you call it, whatever kind of format you're putting it in order for it to be ranked by Google, because you need enough content in there to ask questions and to have plenty of space to integrate in keywords and phrases. So the whole thing about writing an article that's at least 800 words, that'll put a lot of content out there, but it is not enough. It's not big enough, not enough words to have much of a chance of ranking in Google. Not these days. You can do one article per month. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on, and I'll dive into that a little bit more specifically, but you can create a calendar, a content calendar by month focused on specific services and goals. So what I mean by that is if you're, instead of writing 2 800-word articles a month or, one every other week or what have you, then if you write one longer form article and you really focus in on that content and it's focused around promoting a specific service, it's going to be more relevant and drive more inbound traffic. And again, I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, than these little short form things. So you can really scale back. But my point of this is if you're a great speaker, you love speaking, do webinars or podcasts or speaking engagements, record yourself, post it, do something like that. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You can use your iPhone. It's perfectly fine. If you like to write. If you have a team or you really geek out on some of the SEO, SEM, focus on that. Do the kind of things that you enjoy doing because it's going to come across. If it's forced and you're not a great writer and you really, it's a burden, people are going to read that into that because your attitude about whatever it is you're doing is going to come across, even if it's unintentional. So messages go across all of these channels. Now, messages you want to think in memorable sound bites. It should be intriguing, but not a shopping list. You want to help prospects recognize themselves because they don't care about how many credentials you have. They don't care about process and methodology until you're ready to buy. They don't even understand that. You should have a message for each of those stages in the buying cycle. And then answer the questions. Why should they care? What's in it for them? Why you is integrated into that content. Because what do we all care about? What do we all care about?
Ourselves.
We care about ourselves. Let's be real, right? We all care about ourselves. You may not verbalize that all the time, but the reality is a business owner cares about themselves. They care about themselves. They care about their business. They care about their goals. They care about their lives. They care about what they want to pursue. They don't care about you. They don't care about your credentials. They don't care about how many abbreviations you have after your name. They care about, does that help their business? Can you help their business? Can you help them achieve their goals, their lives, what they want to achieve? If you approach your marketing from that perspective and you keep that in mind, it's going to have greater success. Now, out of this, you can create a one-page marketing plan. You want to start with some short and long-term goals. 30 days, maybe number of retainers or average retainer size, number of projects, average project size, 6 months, new retainers, same kind of things. 12 months, how many do you want to have? These should all track back to the goals where we started. Additional goals you want to achieve: personal, professional, team, service line goals, individual goals. Wrap it up into a well-written, doesn't have to be fancy to be effective marketing plan. Start with your goals and draft them. Get everybody on your team, yourself included, to write out these goals. Once you have that, you kind of looked at the marketing channels and everything, the latest thing is creating an inbound strategy. What ultimately you want to do is to eliminate or reduce the amount of push marketing that you're doing, things that you're sending out to people, and you want to turn that so more of your opportunities are coming to you or seeking you out. Now, yes, it seems like a little bit of a misnomer because a lot of times this starts with great content. But you put great content out there, instead of just blasting it out to the world, it's put in very specific things to help people, and in specific ways to help people find it and draw the traffic to you. So where do you start with an inbound strategy? You start with keyword research. And I just like to brainstorm with organizations. What are your prospects searching for when they're searching for your kinds of services? Most of the time, when we look at how organizations rank, they're ranking for their organization name and maybe their individual name. They're not ranking for keywords, which means if you're ranking for your organization name or your own name, you're only getting people coming to you who have heard about you, and that's limiting. So you want to really focus on keyword research. So the first way to do that, brainstorm. What do people look for and search for? What questions are they asking when they're searching for organizations like ours? I like to start with on-page search engine optimization, on-page SEO, and that means title tags, meta descriptions, and keywords integrated into the content. So once I have my questions or my basics, I'll look at what's the on-page SEO. Do I have title tags? Do I have meta descriptions? And do I have keywords in this content? The title tags, if anybody doesn't know what a title tag is, if you look above the bar that has the URL in it in a browser window, and there's a little tab, and it has some words in it. You have to keep less than 60 characters. I recommend around 55 characters. And this is your title tag. It should be relevant to what is on that page. And it should not just be a repeat of the page title and your organization name. So easy way to look, if you have any on-page SEO, go to your website, click the different links, look at the title tag. And if it says about or team or bio or location or services or something, and then it has something afterwards, you do not have title tags. That's an easy way to look. So you want to develop those. Meta descriptions, when anybody does a Google search and you come up with that search engine results pages of all the different links that are there, the different results, and they have a 1 or 2 line description underneath the result, that's a meta description. Now here's what Google does. You have to keep about 160 characters or less. I like to be about a 150 to 155. Preferably, so it doesn't get truncated. But if Google cannot find within the code your meta description, this little sentence or two, it pulls the first content it comes to. So whatever first on that page, top to bottom, whatever first on that page is what it's going to pull in those search engine results. It may not be very intriguing because you've written the paragraph like normal people would read it, but that's not what a meta description is. A meta description is about bait. They're scanning the search engine results and they're looking for, does this fit? It's bait, it's hook. It's a hook. Come on, you need to click on my link here because I'm relevant to what you're looking for. So you want that meta description to answer the question they're asking in that search. And then the final thing to look at is just some simple on-page SEO is keywords integrated into the content. Look at your content, simple way. Highlight the keywords that are in there. What are you repeating? Do you have good keywords? Is anything linked to other pages within your site? You can run an analysis on your website. Here's 3 tools that you might want to use. I use them all the time. I use kind of professional level versions, but there's some simple versions out there. SEO Minion. It's a good way it's a plugin and it'll look at, it's a plugin to Chrome and it'll look at what your SEO looks like on that particular page of your website. SEMrush is a little bit more advanced tool. It has keyword research in it. It has rankings, competitor rankings. It has competitor search. It has question, recommendation. It's a pretty advanced tool. You have to know a little bit about it, but you could use some of the basic tools to look at it also. The other thing that we use is called Ahrefs, Ahrefs. Ahrefs, again, is an analysis tool. It also is about search engine optimization and getting you those rankings. So these are some 3 little tools you could use. There's some other ones out there. I mean, I did a whole presentation earlier this year on just marketing tools, and I covered about 850 tools out there. So there's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of tools in the SEO space. These are 3 that I really like, but I'm sure there are others. I know there are others that you might have used or like as well. You want to integrate calls to action on your pages. So, and here's a simple way. What do you want them to do now? What do you want them to do? They've read this, they've downloaded, they've done something, they've landed on this page. What do you want them to do? What action do you want them to take? Give them an opportunity to take that action. If they've gone to your bio, for example, what might we want them to do after reading your bio? Anybody?
Go ahead.
Reach out,
Contact.
contact me.
Yeah, contact. Thank you very much. Contact. Give them a way to contact you from your bio. Give them a way to set a meeting in another place. Give them a way to reach out, to subscribe to a newsletter, to subscribe to your blog. Lead them to a different blog or an ebook or a webinar that you've done or a podcast. Lead them down. Leave a breadcrumb for them, but answer the question, what do you want them to do? Most websites fall short right here because they put out great information. And then what's a person to do? Leave. Because you haven't said, no, don't leave, do this. Come on, engage. And come further into my domain. Find out more. We haven't invited them to do more. You want also lead capture tools. Now, here's an area of contention, and that is when you have a lead capture tool, the tendency is to make them list everything. Tell me what services you're interested in. Tell me about your business, what's your revenue size, what's the name of your business, what's your email, what's your name, what's your telephone number, blah, blah, blah. Who in this audience really fills out forms like that? Anybody?
No, yeah, no.
What do? We look at that and we go, yeah, no, I don't want, they're going to just hound me. Remember that stage I was talking, those stages that George has been talking about, that I was talking about? See how George and I are so in sync? We might gang up on you in this regard. That stage is one of those early stages. They're not ready to open the curtains or peel back the kimono. They're not ready to tell you everything there is to know about their business. Find the basic information you need to know. You know, if they're just going to subscribe to your newsletter, ask for an email. You'll get more subscribers to your newsletter, more subscribers to your blog, your posts, whatever it is you have going on, your webinars, your podcasts, if you simply ask for an email first. Easy. I'll give you my email. It's not a big deal. If you're using a marketing automation tool, George and I both use HubSpot, then you can have some automation in there. So the next time they visit your website, you can ask them for one more bit of information. So you know you already have their email, so it can pop up and it can be more automated to ask for additional information. So you can gather information as they come back. If you really think you need their first name, last name, go first name, their name, email. A lot of times from email addresses, you can surmise the name of their organization based on their email address, because they're going to use a domain, a business domain most of the time. Some people who really feel cautious about it, and you'll find this in bigger forms, they use a throwdown Gmail address because they think that you're just going to hound them if they're willing to fill out all the form, or they don't give you real information anyway. Create that annual content calendar, focus the content on the services. So you can say, this month, I'm going to focus on my content all around one service area or one topic to drive traffic and to drive interest in this kind of service that I'm selling. That's what I'm going to do. Do that well. Then you can go to the next month. Now people are fearful of this because it's like, Christine, I'm not getting everything out there. I want to just push everything I can say in one fell swoop. But here's the deal. If you do it that way and you do long form content, you go for that 1,500 to 2,000 words, preferably higher toward that 2,000 word content, it has staying power. It has staying power. The trick is, in that content, you want to answer the questions that they're asking. And you literally want to put the questions into your website, on your landing pages, in your service pages, and your content. So who can give me a question that one of their clients or prospects might ask of them when they're searching or they're even talking to you? What question might they ask?
There we go, Eddie.
How can I make running my business less stressful?
How can
Yeah.
I make my business less stressful? Yes. Okay. Who has that specific question on their website? Anybody?
Yeah.
There's an actionable item. If that's the question you're answering, one, make sure you have content that answers that question. Two, write that specific question in your website, in your content, literally. How can I make my business less stressful? Question mark. And write to that. Google's the name of the game. Google loves that, but that's what people want answered. If you're the person answering the question, you're going to be found, you're positioning yourself as an expert. They will come to you, and that's an inbound strategy. The final thing is setting key metrics, understanding what you will measure, track back to your goals. Set the metrics, and this is the last thing in your marketing plan. What will I measure? How will I know if I'm achieving success? So you need those key metrics to track back to what you have going on, what you're trying to achieve. And if you look at that funnel, that I presented, and you look at the breakdown of those goals, there's your metrics. How many opportunities? What's my close ratio on proposals? Have I gotten, how many conversations have I had with real prospects? How many stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 have I gotten? You know, there's lots of key metrics, but you know what doesn't matter? How many visitors you have to your website? How many followers you have on Facebook, or how big your network is at LinkedIn. What does matter is, did they engage with your content? That's a key metric. How many people just happen upon, how many strangers happen upon your website? Nobody cares, because it doesn't mean anything to you. It can be a big number that doesn't convert. I don't care about big numbers. I care about relevant numbers. You should care about relevant numbers also. So with that, I have run through how to build a marketing plan in record time. Hopefully you have derived and extracted some key things for your organization, key actionable items. We're about at the next session, but I do have a couple of minutes if anybody wants to ask a question.
John Foster. Thank you, Christine. That was great. John.
Hey, Christine, thank you. Earlier on, you mentioned the obvious that most people whose door we knock on are not ready to hear what we had to talk about at that time. What role, in your view, do drip campaigns have as ways to repurpose the content that you produce and as a way to stay in front of those prospects?
George, can you repeat?
Yeah. Would we use drip campaigns to repurpose content and to stay in front of people who are somewhere in the buyer's journey?
Okay, first of all, drip campaigns are for stage 1 and stage 2 only. Okay, stage 1, the unawares, and stage 2. If we go back to this diagram, stage 1, unawares, raise consciousness, stay top of mind. That's what a drip campaign does. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm still here. When you're ready, I'm ready. I'm here. Don't forget me. Keep my mind. Just remember my name. Remember the name of the company. Here's what we do. No worries. Whenever you're ready, here I am. Drip, drip, drip. That's a drip campaign. Envision the future. So when you go into contemplating, your drip campaigns need to be a little bit more specific. So you want to say, here I am, but this is how you can be. So you need to start not just, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. That's a typical drip campaign. But you need to say, can you relate? Can you see yourself in this? Can you start recognizing your own issues, your own problems? Now you do that with topics of your content. Now, drip campaigns, this is where short is better. It's just not going to help. Short isn't going to help you on SEO. But that's where you can repurpose content. Now, here's a trick. If you write, say, a piece of long form content a month, that long form content can be turned into at least 10 other pieces of content if you do it correctly. You could take a long form 1,800, 2,000, 1,500, 2,000 word piece. You could turn it into multiple, say, Facebook posts, Twitter posts, things like that. You could probably do a podcast and dive in deep on one of the questions that you answered in that topic. You could take that specific paragraph out and do a drip campaign around it. You could take that and turn it into a bigger piece or a deeper dive into one section. There are lots of different ways you can slice and dice long form content if you start there. What people try to do is go short content because it's fast and easy, and then they don't have anything for the long form and they're not getting the SEO traction. That answer the question?
Yeah, yes, it did. Thanks, Christine.
Ask her a question.
Please,
Wait.
go ahead, Tina, and then John.
Christine, so question, your opinion on webinars and what's kind of the trend now and where are you, I feel like there's a shift. And so, and then where in the stage do you find them effective, if at all still?
Certainly. Webinars can actually be effective stage 1, 2, and 3. You know, stage 4, you're getting very, very specific. So it's not going to have as much relevance on stage 4 as it does in 1, 2, and 3. Webinars, first of all, do not come in equal packages. So when you think of a webinar, I think the problem that people have with webinars is they think, oh, I got to do this hour-long webinar, I got to have this content, blah, 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 blah. No. You have a relevant topic and it's helpful and valuable. There is no magic to what the length is. So, you know, you don't want to go on hours and hours and hours and hours and drone on and on and on, split it up. But if it's 15 to 20 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, that's fine. So don't put yourself in a box in terms of time frame for a webinar, number 1. Number 2 is start with those questions. If you go back to what I was saying about the keyword research and what are the questions that people are asking, if you do that, and then you can create content around that and create a little webinar about how do I make my business less stressful? You know, today's webinar our podcast is about how to make your business less stressful. And you talk, here are the 5 reasons that why business owners are stressed out. 1 is this, you know, and here's why. Here are 3 things they can do about that. 2 is this. You could split them up into little bitty tidbits. People will listen and tune in to content that's relevant. And I'll give you an example from one of our CPA firm clients. In the midst of the whole 2020, you know, and PPP rolling out and the whole, you know, tax deadlines changing, yada, yada, yada. We had clients on both ends of the spectrum. We had clients that absolutely refused to say anything because there was too many things still being decided and it was a very fluid situation. And I kept saying, wrong, 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 wrong. Everybody has questions. You have to get out there. You have to just tell them, this is a fluid situation. We don't know all the answers, but we're tracking it. You can trust us to bring you the answers. And they held back and they were last and they didn't reap as many benefits. I had another client, they listened to me and they went, I said, let's just go. We're going to tell them it's fluid. And they said, okay. We did a 15-minute 15-minute webinar on how to fill out a form. And they had 450 prospects on the call. 15-minute. Here's the form. Put this here, this here, this here, this here. Nobody else was telling them. What was the question? How do I fill out this form? What does this mean? We answered the questions they had, where they had confusion. 450 people on their webinars. And by the way, this firm had never done webinars before, so we did rehearse. We got it all set up. We rehearsed. First ones, a little choppy, and people didn't quite know what to do, and that's okay. But they got better and better and better. Now they're chomping at the bit because they do these little webinars here and there when there's something important to say. And we still get hundreds of people, and they landed hundreds of thousands of dollars of work on those things. Hundreds of thousands. Because they went out there, and many times we ended it saying, this is fluid. It's still being decided. We're tracking this. We're watching. You can depend upon us to bring you the latest. And people just flocked to them. And they went, that's the professional I want to work with. So webinars still work, but it's all about relevancy. Starts with those questions.
I have one more question, Christine. John Crosby?
When you're capturing the emails, are you looking to do a confirmation? Have the email come to them to confirm their email address before you release any information?
So, sometimes I do confirmations like double opt-ins, but I typically don't when it's something like subscribe to our newsletter. Or subscribe to our blog where I'm just asking for their email address. And the reason I don't is because I'm going to see whether that's legit or not based on what my action I take. So they have said, I want to subscribe to this. And then we're going to do something. We're going to send out a newsletter or an email with an article. They're going to get something because they've subscribed, right? So I'm going to watch the numbers and I'm going to see, is there a problem with this or is there not? And if it's not real, boom, we know it was somebody that wasn't even didn't meet our criteria. So if they're not interested, I'm not interested. If they can't get they want to subscribe and they're not given a real email address, boom. The only difference in that is you're going to find out in a little different process in another step that wasn't real, but that step's already included in whatever you're doing. So I'm just a step saver, I guess.
Excellent. Thanks, Christine. Okay, guys. Christine, that was great. Thank you very much. And we're going to take this recording and we're going to load it into Circle. If Christine sends her slides, we'll also load those into Circle, so you won't have to go and look. It'll be in the session in Circle, and you can just grab and go. Okay, that was terrific, guys. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry we couldn't see you in person.
I know. Next time, George. Thanks so much for being flexible. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.